No doubt, if you've been into watches for a while, Paul Boutros is a name that's more than likely come up. His watch journey began as a child, not unlike many of us, but his affinity for the hobby led to a career where he left his job at Lockheed Martin and joined Phillips Auction House over a decade ago. I've had the pleasure of getting to know Paul throughout the last several months, and today's conversation only furthered that fact. This episode is one of those where it twists and turns and arguably starts backwards, which was super fun. Please enjoy my conversation about, you guessed it, cars and watches, and a little bit of missile defense with Paul Boutros. I'm your host, Wesley Smith, and you're listening to the Standard Age Podcast. Mr. Paul Boutros.
How are you?
I'm well, sir. How you doing?
Good to see you. I'm
I
well,
know.
thanks. Happy New Year.
Yeah, likewise. I turned my camera on and I couldn't believe how awake I actually look this early in the morning.
Oh, wait a second. Where are you?
Yeah, I live in San Diego.
Oh, wow. It's early.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I would normally be up at 7, but my point just being is like I actually look like I've been up for hours, and I have not.
Oh, you look great. You got some good sleep, it looks like last night.
Yeah, what a roundabout way to fetch a compliment. How have you been, man? It's good to see you.
Pretty good. No, thank you. You too. Yeah, I've been busy. The new year started off quickly. We are
Yeah,
we are out and about hunting the world for watches,
yeah.
and family life keeps me busy as well. My daughter went to Rome for a study abroad for this semester.
Wow.
We had to take care of getting her all set up there. She's really enjoying it. My son's tennis keeps us busy.
Okay. Now, do you play as well?
No, no, I never really played tennis. Unfortunately, it was a regret because I loved
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he plays for his high school team,
Nice.
and now it's like off season where he plays, in a local competitive team.
Sweet. Now, does your wife play?
No, no, she doesn't play either.
Wow. So how do you get the tennis bug?
He was playing different sports, basketball, baseball, soccer, and tennis, and he really just fell in love with tennis and stopped playing all those other sports,
Yeah.
dedicated himself to tennis.
Yeah. It's really a beautiful game. Like if like the two folks playing are good, of course. you know.
Yeah, and it's a sport you could play for your life.
Exactly.
Easy to continue into your elder years.
Yeah.
Switch to. How about you, Wesley? How's life?
It's good. Yeah, no, thanks for asking. Yeah, that same lesson applies to golf, I would say, and I got that from my grandfather. So that's why I picked up golf, is that it was like I wasn't going to play baseball for the rest of my life. So I started playing golf.
And you play till this day.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah, in fact, I've probably played more over the last several years than I have over the last decade, you know.
Great for
Just
you.
yeah, it's been great. It's a good escape, you know. I feel like I'm a better husband having been on the golf course at some point, you know, just to kind of get outside and be in nature, and then of course, you know, pounding a golf ball is a good outlet as well, depending.
Absolutely. Great way to unwind and escape. Keeps you
Yeah,
healthy.
yeah,
And you have terrific weather in San Diego.
yeah.
Yeah, you being in the West Coast in California, I am always concerned about my friends out there with all the fires and the impacts that you guys are having. I hope it hasn't affected you or your loved ones.
No, we actually live sort of north of San Diego, so we're about 100 miles away from Los Angeles in any of those fires. But on the same token, we've had our own breakouts here and there around San Diego.
Yeah,
I
we've
think
heard,
the
we've heard that.
Yeah, I think the biggest one was near the border actually, and I think it's still burning currently. But yeah, at any rate, it's I believe it's contained, but again, it's 30 miles away from me, that kind of thing. So, what is your daughter studying in Rome? What did she
So
go
she
for?
she's in She's an accounting and finance major.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so she goes to Rutgers in New Jersey, and they have this program where you can study abroad pretty much any country,
Wow.
lots of different countries. Man, she's always dreamt of studying in Italy,
Wow.
like her achievement of a lifelong dream. So I'm very happy for her.
Well, in finance, she should be studying the Catholic Church, I guess.
Maybe, they're not too far from the Vatican. Talk about a successful religion.
Yeah, well, yeah, financially for sure. Yeah, that's hilarious. Well, I definitely wanted to kind of share some of your background because you and I, when we had drinks in New York, I don't, when was that? October, I guess. It's gone quickly.
Yeah, time has flown.
We talked a little bit about your dad and coin collecting, and are you still into coins at all? Do you even
No,
okay, so there's no attention towards coins.
no, I mean I can appreciate them definitely, but yeah, once we discovered watches,
Yeah.
all other hobbies kind of went by the wayside, and it was all in on watches.
Oh, that's cool. Well, I was gonna say, do you collect anything else? But I guess you sort of just answered that.
Yeah, if anything that I could really get into, it's cars.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because they are kind of like human craftsmanship, the best of what mankind can create.
Mm-hmm.
I love craftsmanship, and you could drive them and enjoy them.
Yeah. I mean,
Great car. It's not easy.
welcome to Standard H, man. I mean, it's that crossover, between cars and watches and the appreciation for both. What brands are you into?
Oh, I love Porsche.
Oh, sure. Welcome home.
Yeah, and BMW. I've got an old BMW, a 2008 335i that I bought brand new that I gave to my daughter. It's the one car she wanted. That car has 232,000 miles right now on the
Wow.
original engine, the original turbochargers. Runs like incredibly. They don't
Amazing.
build them like this anymore, I think.
I know that car well. I remember that car. I think that was like one of the first ones with like LED tail lights, if I'm not mistaken.
Probably. Actually, that era, 2009, the Porsche
Oh
997,
yeah, that's true. Yep. The dot twos.
the
Yep.
L8. Yep. But I think BMW lagged behind a little bit with using LEDs. Nice.
So are you a 911 owner?
Fortunately, I am.
What do you have?
I have a 2022 GTS.
Oh, amazing. Great. Is it manual?
It is not.
Okay, PDK. Got it.
It's PDK.
Now, is this your first 911?
That was.
Okay. All right. So BMW was the lead up, but did you not drive anything else between '08 and 22?
No, I got a Panamera
Sweet.
in 2017 or 2018.
Okay.
My first taste of a Porsche.
Nice.
Yeah, and I've always wanted to go into cars, but my head was so into watches.
Yeah.
So my attention was focused there. And then when it was time to get a new family car, I was like, the Panamera sounds pretty good. And I wasn't even thinking about it until my father-in-law was really pushing it. He's like, you really got to take a look at the Panamera. I love it. I love it. I love it. And I never thought about it until I really started looking at it. And then I got this GTS model, the last naturally aspirated
Excuse me.
V8 by Porsche,
Yeah.
440 horsepower. It is incredible. That car is like a Jekyll and Hyde, and the
Mm-hmm.
quality of that car just opened my eyes to the greatness of Porsche.
Oh,
And
that's
once
amazing.
you get one in your garage, they have a tendency to multiply.
It's crazy. Shortly after you and I connected in New York in October, I finally picked up my first 911, which is a 2007 997.1. It's black over tan, manual coupe, C2S. It's like every car I'd ever wanted, and it is funny how like right when you think your obsession with the brand is like at a certain level, it multiplies and you're just like obsessed. I'm drinking out of a Porsche coffee mug this morning. Like it's just I hate to be that guy, but it's like a moss that just grows. You know what I mean?
Let me guess, you're also looking for like accessories for the car here and there.
Well, I mean, you know what's funny is like I genuinely got this car with the like the desire to keep it OEM. And I really wanted it to just like I don't want to lower it on sport suspension. I don't want to, tune the engine in any sort of way or.
It's as good as can be from the factory. That's my viewpoint too, with suspension or engine mods or exhaust mods.
Yeah,
The brand designed it.
yeah, I feel like if it was good enough for Porsche, it's probably good enough for me. You know what I mean? And as far as that is concerned, don't think for a second I haven't thought about getting other cars. But it's currently not in the budget and I've been this is the only one I would ever want and or need. But now granted, well, I guess it's not the only one I would ever want based on what I just said. But it is the only one I would ever need, and I absolutely love the car. And it's in impeccable condition. And
Congratulations.
yeah, thanks. And we're due to have a baby girl in May, so
Exciting.
yeah, so that's pretty cool.
That's your first child.
It is, yeah, yeah, exactly. And so like I have every desire in the world to like raise my child in this car, and just like
Perfect until they're like 10 years old. She can enjoy that car and grow up with a Porsche in her life. It's going to be wonderful.
right. What happens at 10?
They get too big.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
I
yeah.
think this is the rear seats, they kind of outgrow them.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure.
But, if you drive her in the passenger seat, it's all good.
Yeah. Now, is your father-in-law a Porsche guy? He sounds like one.
No, so my wife's family, they love cars too, but
Cool.
he was never a Porsche guy, but he loved the Panamera for some reason.
Huh.
And I used to think of it as like the ugly duckling of Porsche, but
It grows on you though, doesn't it?
oh my God, the car is incredible. It
Yeah.
is such an underrated car, and it's so good. It's like the best bargain Porsche out there for anyone wanting a good family, you know, version of a 911. It's not a 911 by any stretch, but it is really sporty, handles incredibly well, has so much power,
Mm-hmm.
and looks great, especially the GTS model.
Yeah, it's funny. I think I have a GTI as sort of my daily driver, and have God, this is my second GTI and my fourth Volkswagen. So, a big Volkswagen Audi group guy. And so as a result, having the kid and blah blah blah, it's like after the GTI's like had its moment, I'm thinking about doing an A4 Avant, from Audi. But I have thought about a Panamera actually. You know,
Yeah,
it's a bigger car though. It's bigger than an A4.
it's big. It's the length and width, or sorry, the width of a Tahoe.
Oh wow.
It fills up the garage. It's big. Yeah,
Oh
bigger
wow. Yeah.
than you expect, but highly recommend the 2014 to 2016 GTS.
Interesting.
That's like peak V8, and the engine sound is unreal. It's like one of the best sounding Porsche engines, that's not a race car
Yeah.
that you can buy.
Now was that a similar engine in the Cayenne back then? The Cayenne S was a
I
is it the
I
same
think
engine?
so. I think it's the same engine,
Okay.
tuned a bit. But that was the highest spec naturally aspirated V8 that they ever made.
Oh, amazing. Oh wow. So 2014 to 2016. That's great.
Yeah.
Um that's awesome, man. I had no idea. That's great. We're sort of almost having this conversation backwards.
Yeah.
These usually wrap up with car talk, but that's great. Well, you and I both share a love of IWC, especially for your beginnings. Having seen a pocket watch at Wempe.
You remember, yes.
So for me, I fell in love with the Portofino chronograph, which was meant for the wrist. You found a Portofino pocket watch. And I think it was like your introduction to the movement, right? Like tell short like, for those who don't know you, right? Like you're from and in and around the New York area. Um, you walked into Wempe with your dad as a young lad, and this wonderful woman introduced you to IWC.
Yeah, exactly. I've told the story numerous times, so for anyone listening, I do apologize if you've
Right,
heard this
right.
plenty of times, but I'll try to keep it brief. Yeah, so we had gone to a coin show in Manhattan in 1986, and afterwards we're walking on Fifth Avenue during the holiday season. My dad's showing me the windows that they're all, decked out for the holidays, and he stops by Wempe when it was on the other side of Fifth Avenue to where it is today. And in the showcases, we see these small objects. I see these small objects with high price tags. They're watches, 10,000, 50,000, $100,000 for a watch. What is this world? And a lovely saleswoman, she sees my enthusiasm and invites us in. Gentlemen, would you like to come inside? And I grabbed my dad by the arm. I said, absolutely, Dad, let's go in. She sits us down and plays on my interest and asks me, young man, what would you like to see? And I pointed out that pocket watch because it looked amazing in the showcase and it had a retail price of $23,000. Um, Moon phase and seconds on the dial, large moon phase and as large seconds as the Portofino that they made in the same era in the 1980s and 1990s. But it was a pocket watch. She brings it over. She opens up the case back, and under this atmosphere, this warm, inviting atmosphere under the halogen lights, I see this big ticking balance wheel, golden bridges, and these jewels sparkling like a world I've never seen.
Yeah.
And it was love at first sight. And from that moment, I had to learn as much as I could about watches.
Wow.
But it at IWC that basically changed my life.
You know, what was 100 grand in '86? Because I certainly don't know.
For me, I just remember I was so fascinated by coins because these tiny little things had so much value. Just
Right.
like baseball cards, I was always fascinated by that.
Yeah.
And when you saw something at $100,000,
Yeah.
it was like, whew, huge money.
Yeah.
Probably, relative to us now, it was probably like $10 million to me as a 10-year-old kid.
Yeah, totally.
$1,000.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. Man, so what was the first watch you ever got?
It actually started way earlier than that. I remember a priest in my parents' church was wearing like a Casio digital watch, and I think I was 5 years old
Sweet.
or 6 years old, and I was begging my parents for that watch.
Now, was this like the calculator watch?
I think it was just a regular like digital watch,
Okay,
and
okay.
I really wanted it, and I'm pretty sure he gave it to me.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
It started very, very young. But I would say, like many people, when I was a kid, I was getting the swatches. Those were probably the first watches I was getting for myself as a gift from my parents. It was
Sure.
most likely swatches. Outside of that digital watch and Mickey Mouse watches here and there, I'm sure I had.
Yeah, I had the hot pink case protector on my Swatch. Remember those? They had you could like
Yes,
attach the
you
case
could do like
protector.
two of them. The one that went vertically
Yeah.
across, and then there was one round one that you could put on top.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, those were the days. The Swatch chronograph, the Swatch automatic watch. I think that was in the early 1990s, and standing
Yeah.
online to get one.
Yep. It was like very much the I can't remember what they call it, but Nike has a name for that sort of fuchsia color or like hot pink. I just think of Andre Agassi. Um, he always wore those bright colors. And it was very much like that. But you studied electrical engineering and worked for Lockheed Martin out of college. Where did you go to school again? I don't remember.
So I went to Rutgers.
Rutgers. Okay. Yeah.
Yep, and I focused on wireless communications.
Oh, okay.
So at the same age in 1986, 10 years old, fell in love with watches, and I knew I was going to be an electrical engineer.
Huh.
As a kid, I loved walkie-talkies and radio, Walkmans, and all those things, and I was fascinated by how these things could work.
Yeah, I still don't understand it.
So my life took those two paths, and yeah, so I got a job with Lockheed out of college. Worked there for 16 years. I was in a program where I got to two different rotations around the business and
Okay.
ended up being an engineer designing ballistic missile defense systems for the U.S. Navy. Really like hardcore engineering, just basically rocket science,
Yeah.
trying trying to counter ballistic missiles and figuring out how to do that.
Wow.
And then my career took some different twists and turns, but was still engaged in the world of watches. Um, but yeah, I'll stop there and let's see where
Sure.
you take it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm kind of curious. Like, were you involved in like, was it sort of like surface to air defense type of approach, or was it more offensive, or both, or?
Yeah, it was defense, so it was for
Okay.
the U.S. Navy's fleet of Aegis ships, and
Okay.
so that's mobile ballistic missile defense. So basically, you could take a ship and get close to, a threat, and the closer you are to the launch of a missile, the better odds you have of shooting down the missile.
Sure. Now, why is that?
It's just missiles have multiple stages,
Okay.
and as they separate, it's harder and harder to find the actual warhead. So if you could
Oh,
destroy it before it separates,
I see.
then it makes your job so much easier.
Sure.
The more time it has, the further out it gets, the more separation events happen, and then you have to find where that warhead is, and you may miss it. So there's thousands of objects that you have to, discriminate.
Right, because they're trying to distract you. Well, that's crazy. I never realized they like separated like a NASA rocket. I always thought it was just once it's shot, it's shot, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Short range, it's just one, but longer range, those that the U.S. was most concerned with for the defense of
Yeah.
our homeland and our allies. They were looking at longer range ballistic missiles, and those have the tendency to separate.
Now, what would you say? This is a random question. Certainly didn't have this one written down. Do you like what would I guess today we get like cyber attacks constantly. It's like every 5 seconds or something. But like back then, I mean, I mean, we're talking what 20 years ago that you worked there.
So I left in 2014.
Okay, sure. To go to Phillips, which is a great transition that we'll talk about. but my thing is like, now we hear about cybersecurity and cyber attacks happening constantly. I would imagine people were firing missiles at us 20, 30 years ago that we citizens didn't know about, but like certainly the defense systems did. But like I wonder how common that is now where just arbitrary rockets are being shot at us, you know?
Yeah, you hear it on the news often, and it's not shot at us. It's really like test firings
Hmm.
by countries like North Korea, and they do it like every 6 months or so.
Okay.
They're just honing their own capability, and anytime there's a missile firing, it's good to be out there, and
Sure.
our ships, our allies' ships, are out there monitoring and actually tracking these missiles and seeing how they behave, and you get a sense of their maturity
Yeah.
uh, and progress, and you design your systems to be able to figure out the capability and create your own capability against those threats that you see.
Yeah.
So they're not fired at us,
Okay.
thankfully. They're just really test missiles fired over our allies, like Japan, especially, or Korea.
Hmm.
And in every one of those tests, they're closely watched.
Right. Yeah, it kind of gives you a new appreciation for what the military does. I mean, you've got to always be on alert. You know what I mean? Because you never know. I mean, imagine having to be that alert all the time. Like, that's stressful.
And you need to have ships out there. You need to have sensors out there so
Hmm.
that you can stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
The United States' policy used to be like to have a 10x capability against our nearest adversary.
Really?
And that pushed so much spending in defense. You know, there's Sun Tzu's art of war concepts
Yeah.
where the best defense is just never being threatened.
Right.
Great military capability, maybe nobody threatens you. And
It's funny. I just rearranged my office recently, and so I was like rearranging the books behind me, and I actually have that book that you just cited. And I mean, I read it years and years and years ago. I should probably go back and reread it since, starting a business can be kind of like war, but yeah,
yeah, that's
that's
actually, you know, timeless insights
yeah.
from 1,000 years ago. I forget when it was written.
Yeah, yeah, ages for sure. What's something that you used to use at Lockheed that you still use today, would you say?
Ooh, you know, the I guess it's a character trait. It's problem solving,
Yeah.
and engineering is all about solving problems and
Mhm.
finding solutions to problems, and that's the mindset I bring to any job I take, any work I do. Um, Always finding a solution.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's a constant in my life is seeing every problem as something solvable.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is before you started with Phillips, like going back, like you were writing on forums, was it like purists and things like that? You even had your own watch club, didn't you?
I did, yes.
So tell me how that started. Like what and who was in it?
Yeah, so
Is this like pre Red Bar or like how
yeah,
did it?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I think we were probably the first social watch club that we know of to exist. It began in about 2004, 2005.
No way.
So I got back into watches once I finished grad school. So I
Mhm.
was going to grad school, working, you know, 32 hours a week in my full-time job at Lockheed and going to grad school part-time. And I finished my degree in January 2000, sorry, December 2001. Got my master's degree in December 2001. And of course, in my spare time, I was so busy because I'm working and I'm getting the degree and just super busy.
Sure.
In January 2002, my father passed away.
Hmm.
And I had been really not so much into watches from my engineering school undergraduate days to about the time I finished grad school. Yeah, you just college life, studying engineering. It was a pretty intense workload, and
Sure.
weekends I just wanted to have fun. And when he passed away, I go back to the safe deposit box where the collection that we had built together, you know, I was the researcher and he was the buyer, and I was telling him what to buy. We would go to flea markets and auctions and hunt the world together. Um, and when I go back to the safe deposit box, I realized that the watches there, they were the best memories I had with my dad growing
Hmm.
up because we had a tough relationship. He came
Hmm.
from a different country. He was quite religious and he wanted me to not be American, wanted me to be more towards his culture.
Okay.
Fought so much, but when we were hunting watches, we never fought. It was just peace, love,
Yeah. Level playing ground. Yeah.
happiness. Yep. And so once I saw those watches and got that collection back, like I said, I was overcome with emotion that this is the happiest memories I had. And so then I had extra time because I'm not in grad school any longer. And I started to take pictures of the watches. I started to post my thoughts on some of the watches. I started to read watch magazines and share with the world, you know, what I thought about things. And there was time zone back then and the purists. And
Hmm.
if I bought a watch, and back then I bought my first vintage watch soon after he passed away, and it was a Rolex patent pending prototype double red sea dweller that appealed to me because as an engineer, I saw patent pending on the case back, and I knew that was a prototype of
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Do you remember what you paid for that?
$9,500.
Wow. That's great.
Yeah, yeah, it was not known back then how rare it was.
Where'd you get it?
A great vintage dealer. It was Watch Commander back then. It's
Oh, Matt. Yeah, 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 yeah.
who is still around today, a great vintage dealer.
Yeah, we're gonna get Matt on this show before too long, I think.
Yeah, he's a fascinating guy with great stories to tell as well, and he's seen so many different watches.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was the first real vintage dealer that I dealt with, and they were terrific. So yeah, that got me started, and so when you're kind of writing about things, you're going to auctions, you're meeting people along the way, and then especially these auction previews, and you say or in the purists, let's all meet face to face, let's have a get together.
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, there was a group of us in New York. We said, let's start a watch club, the Watch Enthusiasts of New York.
Yeah.
And yeah, we would get together in the beginning like once a week. Then was once every 2 weeks. Then it was once a month. And soon we opened it up to watch brands. They would come, they would show us their watches. We had Roger Smith, we had Philippe Dufour,
Wow.
Max Gooser, many of these early independents, FP Journe a few times. It was so, easy. We were just a group of watch lovers,
Yeah.
your ego at the door. We're here for the enjoyment of watches, and we're here to learn together.
Yeah.
We all took different paths in our watch collecting journeys. Let's share what we learned. And yeah, it was a great group of folks. I still know most everyone who we used to get together with, but that sort of faded soon after I left Phillips. I just didn't have the time to continue it. So that lasted for about 10 or 11 years.
Wow. That's crazy. Well, forgive me for going back in the conversation, but when you first opened the safety deposit box, were there any watches in there, A, you'd forgotten about, or B, you were just like, I never would have bought this today, or like, I can't believe I had the foresight to buy this today? Like, what were some of the feelings, you know?
To be very honest with you, there were a lot of mistakes because we
Okay.
were buying in the 80s and 90s when there was no information really out there.
Sure.
And refinished dials, you know, lots of things, a handful of really good watches, especially bargains
Yeah.
that remember vividly. So there weren't really many that just completely forgot about, but
Yeah.
many mistakes. And
Sure.
those mistakes really are where you learn.
Yep.
There's no like education in vintage watches like there is in art. You could become an art history major and learn tremendous amount of things in the field of art.
Hmm.
In watches, it's really about experience, and those mistakes were like my college tuition in learning about watches.
Yeah.
With mistakes, you learn the most. Um,
Well, what were you buying back then? Because obviously, with your dad being the bank and you being the researcher, like what were you researching? Or was it just what your affinity was at the time and your dad was cool with that?
trying to learn, you've got advertisements in newspapers, you get catalogs from watch stores like Wempe and Tourneau back in the day. They had a certified pre-owned program
Mm-hmm.
where they would advertise the pre-owned watches they had. You'd go into the shops, you'd see what the prices are. You go to auctions, you see what the interest level was in certain pieces.
Oh, interesting.
And you just try. So we were buying Omegas, we were buying Tudors, Rolexes here and there. These were
Yeah.
low value. My dad came from humble roots,
Hmm.
so we were trying to buy things we could afford.
Yeah.
Couldn't really afford going to a boutique and buying a brand new Patek, but
Right.
you could buy it pre-owned and save a lot of money. And so that was the way we went.
That's amazing. Well, you've now been at Phillips for, I guess it's been over 10 years, obviously now. What was your first role and like what is your role now?
Yeah, so I was hired as a consultant, and it was really to build Phillips from a clean sheet of paper
Yeah.
together with a small handful of people. It was just five of us, and y- you know how it came to be. It just the stars aligned pretty well for me.
Hmm.
Um,
Good timing.
yeah, I was put in my career at Lockheed where I was either going to, take a new job and relocate.
Mm-hmm.
The watch industry was kind of calling my name, and I was really wanting to find something that could work in the watch world. And I put myself out there that I was a consultant and got a couple of gigs. And Aurel was at Christie's, and then had left Christie's in 2013. While he was at Christie's, we had met, and he was considering hiring me, and we spoke, but the timing wasn't right.
Mm-hmm.
And he left Christie's, and he heard that I was on the market, as a consultant.
Right.
He was in talks with Phillips to start a new watches department, and found a way to get in touch with me to say, "Hey, we heard that you're in the market to becoming a consultant. We're thinking of opening up a new watch department." And I spoke to Aurel, and I heard his vision for what he wanted the department to be. And he was like I said, clean sheet of paper. We're going to sell fewer watches, focus on highest quality, be dedicated to scholarship, transparency, and client service. And Paul, I want you because you are a collector. You're not a dealer. And collector is kind of a different mindset than a
Sure.
dealer.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're focused on getting the best watch for the money instead of making the most money out of a watch.
Right.
So with that mindset, he liked that I was an outsider and like a fresh viewpoint from a collector's perspective. And I loved what I heard. And with the support of my wife, thankfully, she was like, "Go for it." And I quit my day job September 2014, 16-year career at Lockheed, and a great career track. Lockheed was great to me. Met some wonderful people, worked with amazing people,
Sure.
really cool programs. But yeah, we I was the first person to sign before even Aurel signed with Phillips.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I started in September, and Aurel wouldn't sign until November, just finalizing all the details of the relationship. And yeah, I came into my office in at Phillips in New York, and the news wasn't out that there was a watch department that Phillips was going to launch. And I just remember the colleagues at Phillips were looking at me. Who's this guy? He's sitting in this office. He took someone's office that we love. What are you doing here? And I couldn't really say much. I'm Paul. I'm the new watches guy.
Right.
You gonna have a watch department? And I'm like, yeah, yeah. Just stay tuned. Stay tuned. And sure enough, in November 2014, we announce, and it was just five of us in the announcement. Aurel, his wife Livia, his partner Livia Russo, Nathalie Montbaron, Virginie Leotard, and me. And
Wow.
yeah, I was really the outsider. So they really took a big risk in hiring me, as I had no track record in the watch industry as a worker. But it was a leap of faith on his part, a
Yeah.
bit of a leap of faith on my part as well.
Yeah, sure.
Saying turning my back on my career. But it was the best decision I made. It's been a wonderful journey, 10 years in.
So I would imagine much of what you do is sourcing watches to go to auction, I'd imagine, right? So was that what you were doing on day dot, or were you just, or did that evolve somehow, or?
So I apologize because you did ask the question, what were you doing
Oh,
initially?
no, that's okay.
So I was hired as a consultant, and one of the things I recommended was, let's start a digital channel, basically, and a digital strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Established the Phillips Watches Instagram, Facebook page. We had a Twitter, we had a Tumblr page, and we needed to get the word out that we're a watches department. And because we were so few in the beginning, we were doing everything, just this handful of people. And so initially, I was the catalog photographer, believe it or not.
Oh,
So
wow.
I mentioned when I got back into watches, I was taking pictures and sharing my thoughts on watches on the forums. And yeah, I just love taking pictures of watches. And so I was a collector taking pictures of watches, and I was like the first specialist I think ever to photograph an auction catalog. is not a professional photographer
Right.
for each catalog. So I did the first three Geneva catalogs. I shot them, and we said, look, we're about transparency. None of our photos are Photoshop, and
Right.
it's true because I didn't know how to use
Yeah, I was
Photoshop.
gonna say because you didn't know how to use
I
it.
didn't know how to use it. Yep. And so we showed watches as they were, and clients loved it.
That's great.
And it was a collector's view of watches. And so specific angles, and then of course working with more experienced photography people like Pucci Papaleo, Oro Montanari was giving me tips,
Sure.
on how to shoot, and learning as I went, and it was a lot of fun. But yeah, we were doing all sorts of things, just getting the word out in New York, community building, um, doing events here at Phillips, just trying to grow this small team and let the world know we exist.
Yeah.
We had three offices at the time, whereas our competitors had maybe 50 to 100 offices worldwide.
Wow.
We had to leverage social media in lieu of physical offices to have the public know about us.
Yeah.
We had a press campaign. We all just worked together to build it, and it was a wonderful time.
Now, how many people work there now?
We're probably about 40 around
Okay.
the world.
Sure. Which is still fairly small, I feel like.
Yeah, we're a small team, small but nimble team. In New York, we have about six of us in total.
Okay.
Um, and we've got London, we've got Geneva, we've got Hong Kong, Japan. Those are our main sites.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we are an international team that like no other team I've worked with anywhere. We all work together. We
Yeah.
have each other's backs, um, and the results that Phillips is able to get is the result of international teamwork,
Sure.
unlike anywhere.
How much travel do you do?
In the beginning, it was quite a bit.
Yeah.
I was probably on the road 70% of the time.
Oh, wow.
Now it's less, fortunately, because our international team is stood up, and I
Hmm.
don't have to travel internationally as much as I used to. So I travel for the auctions. I'm probably on the road maybe 20%.
So when you guys sell the Paul Newman Daytona and, the Marlon Brando GMT, do you think that was a byproduct of you guys using these newer channels such as Instagram and stuff like that, or was it more because being so small, like why wouldn't those watches go to Christie's, for example? Like how do you secure such like robust lots like that as a small company?
It's a great question, and it really in this industry it all boils down to people
Mhm.
and relationships.
Sure.
And our founder is Orel Bax, who's been in the industry for decades.
Mhm.
When he was at Christie's and I was a collector, I always looked up to him and I was like, this guy is so good and in his knowledge. And it's when he was speaking on videos, you could just see his passion for them and his insane amount of knowledge. But what people don't realize is he is a great person at the same time. He takes care of those around him. Um, when I was making the career change, he ensured that I was looking at the contract to protect myself.
Yeah.
He said, you've got a family. I want you to make sure that this contract is robust enough and protects you. He's
Mhm.
always looking out for people. And he's the same way with his clients. So when the Paul Newman Daytona came about, how it came about is the owner, who was Nell Newman, Paul Newman's daughter's ex-boyfriend, he
Mhm.
owned the watch. He was given that watch by Paul Newman, I think in 1986. My memory may be a little bit rusty.
Sure.
1985, 1986. It's published somewhere when Paul Newman gave him that watch because he got a new big red reference 6263 Daytona from Joanne Woodward that was signed Drive Slowly Joanne
Right.
versus Drive Carefully Me on the
Right.
Paul. the Paul Newman. So when he received that new watch, he gave that watch to James Cox, Nell Newman's boyfriend at the time, who was staying with them in Westport, Connecticut for the summer. So that Paul Newman Daytona was in James Cox's possession all the way up to the auction, basically.
Crazy. So
And in
crazy.
2016, he wanted to sell it to raise funds to help Nell Newman's charity. They still remain best, very close friends, even though they were no longer dating. They were
Hmm.
very good friends. And James was the treasurer of Nell Newman's charity. So he was thinking to seed that charity with money from the sale proceeds of this watch. So he goes to his lawyer and asks his lawyer for advice. Hey, I want to sell this. I want to sell it for charity, but there's, legal and tax implications. Where do I start and how do I sell it? So James's lawyer says, well, I've got another client who is a watch expert. Let me call him to see what he says.
Okay.
Watch expert is a longtime client of Orel's. And
Wow.
that watch expert said to the lawyer, you've got to speak to Orel Bax.
Got it.
And then the lawyer
Yeah.
introduced Orel to James. Orel flew to Los Angeles to meet James for the first time. And at that first meeting in LA, um, he hit it off with James, and the decision was made to consign with Phillips back then.
It all comes down to I know a guy.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
it's about long-term relationships
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
and preserving trust and taking care of people and never screwing somebody,
Sure.
being a person of your word, and that reputation follows you. It's just like
Yeah.
karma follows a person, and in this case, good karma followed Orel.
Sure. So how how are you paid exactly? Were you salaried before? Like, is there any commission structure within this environment? Like, regardless of company, right? Like, because if you're sourcing watches and you're responsible for these particular pieces becoming lots that are auctioned, is there a commission that any company offers, be it Phillips or otherwise?
At least at Phillips, we are salaried.
Okay, got it.
So we are paid what we're paid,
Yep,
regardless of whether a watch sells, regardless of whether you bring in a watch, which is great because we can do things the way we want to do without pressure to sell.
sure, exactly.
That makes it less pressure in making wrong decisions. So we have the freedom and flexibility to do the putting together auctions the way we want to put them together, with no pressure to have a whole bunch of lots that nobody wants or pricing them too high to meet quarterly objectives. No, that was one really appealing thing about joining Phillips, is that we have total freedom in how we design our auctions with no corporate pressure, mandates, quarterly sales. So we focus on quality. It's not quantity. We don't want to be a glorified flea market. No, what we are is searching the world for the best timepieces we can find that we would personally buy ourselves if we were able to.
Yeah, yeah. No, I love that. Now, I am aware you guys have code names for these like big lots, right? Like when you talk about them secretly behind closed doors. Uh, I know you probably don't want to share certain names, but what I'm curious about is the approach to naming them the same.
Um, you do want to keep things a secret.
Okay.
Just like my old career, I had a top secret government clearance.
Yeah,
I am trained to keep secrets, so it's
sure.
it's it's my second nature now. You just don't want people talking
Yeah.
who they have no malintentions, but somebody goes to a coffee shop and says, "Oh, by the way, we got this watch."
Right, sure. Yeah.
So you want to code name it,
Right.
in certain cases, and sometimes it's something that's related to the timepiece, but not. Other
Okay.
times it's sweet. like a donut in a different language, for example.
I see. So it's not your middle name in the street you grew up on.
No. The name of your first pet, right?
Yeah, yeah. That's funny.
Yeah. No, but yeah, we do that for for certain top lots.
Tell me about Ben Clymer's auction and any other sort of like, special auction. Because I mean, that had to have been a special one for you.
Yeah, I was very honored that Ben decided to sell a handful of watches from his collection with us in New York, and they were really fantastic. They told a great story. He's a really intelligent collector. Seeks watches that are as honest as possible. Like many car collectors you may run into, Wesley, they want original paint. They love original owner cars. As you talked about with your 997, no modifications, as close to original as possible. And that's what Ben saw in the vintage watches he acquired. Many of those watches were like that. And
Hmm.
there was the 8171 Rolex triple calendar with moon phase that had some wear, but very honest wear. It was like a car with maybe 30,000 miles. Still a really, really great condition, but never modified. Original case finishing everywhere. The dial was gorgeous.
Hmm.
He had a very rare Patek reference 2526, the very first self-winding Patek Philippe watch introduced in 1953.
Hmm.
Extremely rare in white gold. And I remember when he acquired it, I learned something from him as he pointed out that the graphics, the writing Patek Philippe on the dial was white, versus with these dials, if it was found on a platinum version, the writing would have been gold, gilt colored.
Ah, right, right.
So the white gold original enamel dial watches would have white writing, and that watch had that. And Yeah, that sold for a great price. I think we did $280,000 all inclusive of the buyer's premium. The result
Wow.
for that, his collaboration with Laurent Ferrier, one of the coolest collabs that I think Hodinkee had done. The Traveler, Gallet
Hmm.
Traveler, dual time zone watch with an enamel two-tone dial. Serial number one, a watch with special meaning for him. He was very upfront about why he's selling. A collection is a journey, and you enjoy them for a while, and it's time to move on and let someone else enjoy them. As his collection took a different turn,
Hmm.
and yeah, we really enjoyed having them, and the interest was tremendous around the world.
Yeah, that's great. Well, speaking of journeys, where are you on yours? Like, what are your eyes on right now, or maybe even looking to in the future for yourself personally?
Yeah, I love watches with a focus on timekeeping precision. That's what gets me most excited. Um, I know how hard it is to make a very accurate mechanical watch,
Sure.
and so brands that focus on that really get my attention. And I also love brands that are original in their designs
Hmm.
and that the designs are timeless, which I feel are timeless, that 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now, even, it's not going to look dated.
Right, right.
It's going to look as modern as it did when it came out. And so I am very particular about how a watch fits my wrist,
Hmm.
and that's really important to me. And I always encourage my clients and friends who are considering buying a new watch to make sure that they try it on, because what looks great in a picture or in a showcase
Yeah.
may feel much different and not fit you at all when it comes time to putting it on your wrist.
Yeah, you never know what size wrist that model has. Like they might have like an 8-inch wrist.
Yeah, or it might be so complicated that they couldn't make it small enough,
Yeah.
and it's too thick or it's
Right.
top heavy, and you can never just wear it comfortably.
Hmm.
When you have a collection of watches that you just can't wait to put them on your wrist, that collection is going to make you so happy.
Yep.
So I still love vintage Rolex. I kind of cut my teeth with vintage Rolex early in my collecting career,
Hmm.
post my dad's passing away.
Hmm.
I still love modern Rolex. Um, not too much if those that are too big. So they do have to be a certain size for me. I love independence. I'm a big fan of Francois Paul Journe. I think he is the greatest living watchmaker right now. Huge fan of Recepi,
Oh yeah.
what he's doing and the finishing and aesthetic quality. It's outstanding. New brands like Simon Brett. Love what he's doing. Josh Shapiro, an American watchmaker.
Yeah, right up the street.
Some exciting times we're in, where independent makers are putting their heart and souls into creating things that are very different than the mainstream brands.
Yep.
Uh, but the mainstream brands are making great things too, like Audemars Piguet, Vacheron Constantin. I do like what they're doing as well.
So what's a focus for Phillips, would you say, for 2025?
Well, it is our 10-year anniversary. So we held our first auction in May 2015. So 2025 is our 10-year anniversary. It's more of doing what we do best, and that is, sourcing the best watches we could possibly find from around the world. Quality over quantity, dedication to that. Top quality is the name of the game. Watches with stories to tell, and we love telling the stories of great watches. It is our duty. Just like cars, just like art, some of these objects have incredible stories, and it is our duty to share that and try to tell the story in the best way possible to do justice to these objects. And so more of that, just storytelling, community building. We love partnering with charitable organizations like the Horological Society of New York. We just completed an auction for Swiss Institute, which funds art education in New York. And we did a Time for Art sale where all proceeds, including our buyer's premium, was donated to Swiss Institute.
Cool.
We love giving back wherever possible. So yeah, we're in January right now, and our first auctions will be in March online. And yeah, we are still hunting, so I can't wait to see what we get around the world. But yeah, we finished a very strong year in 2024. The market for watches is healthy and strong. We are expecting the same. The passion for great watches doesn't fade. There's a hype era that we saw where people were chasing watches for the wrong reasons. Not all watches, but a certain segment of watches. That has faded away, which is great. What remains are really enthusiastic collectors buying watches for the right reasons. And the market has grown tremendously since the pandemic, let's say.
Sure.
And yeah, the demand remains strong, and we can't satisfy the demand. So we that's why we're out there hunting and trying to find as many watches as we can to satisfy
Sure.
the demand.
Now, your offices are in Manhattan, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, are you in Manhattan? Do you take the GTS to work, or are we taking
No,
public transportation?
I take public transportation, so I live
Okay.
out in New Jersey,
Okay, got it.
and yeah, public transportation here. Yeah, we are in Midtown Manhattan. It's not the easiest commute, to be quite honest, but when you're on the train, you can get a lot of work done.
Sure.
The good thing is most of my work is done over emails,
Yeah.
text messages, and I can do that anytime with a mobile phone.
All right. So I've, full disclosure, never bought a watch from an auction. I've never attended an auction. I've maybe held an auction catalog in my hand a time or two, but it's not a routine thing for me, right? I'm also not buying watches frequent enough to be like finger on the pulse of all the auctions and know everything that's going on. So the March auctions that you mentioned, is there a theme? Is there a title? Has it already been shared? Because I have no idea.
Um, yeah, so the online auctions it starts with Geneva. It's called the Geneva Sessions.
Okay, sure.
50 or 60 watches, a lot of them modern,
Hmm.
but kind of special, and great, very exciting ones. And the prices, the auction estimates where you can
Hmm.
actually win are quite reasonable. And they're
Okay.
typically a fraction of the retail price.
Hmm.
We always try to use conservative estimates to give everyone an opportunity to win. Um, so Geneva is called the Geneva Sessions. That will be around March 7th, March 8th, off the top of
Okay.
my head, early March, followed by Hong Kong, which is later March. It's Hong Kong online. They'll probably have about 100 watches,
Okay.
starting probably around 1,000 US dollars. And
Cool.
then New York will have our first online auction from April 1st to April 8th, with probably 50 to 60 watches in total, maybe less. But there'll be some vintage, there'll be some modern, something for everyone. We'll have an exhibition of the Geneva live auction sale that takes place in May in New York, right around late March, where we'll also show the New York online watches. And I absolutely encourage anyone who loves watches to come to an auction preview because auction previews allow you to try on any watch with zero pressure to buy. And in one place, you can try on watches from all different brands, from all different eras, speak to other collectors, speak to specialists. There's no faster way to learn than visiting an auction preview if you love watches.
That's cool. I love that. Well, so what if like I can't be present for an online auction? What if I know due to the preview or what have you, or I see it on Instagram or whatever, like this is coming up and I have a number in mind, could I like email you, Paul, saying like, "Look, man, I'm actually going to be on a flight to Dubai when this is like being auctioned, so I can't," or whatever the case may be, right? Could I like give you my number before it even begins? Like, what does one do?
Yeah, it's actually quite easy when you know someone in the auction house. Everyone's name is on the website who's
Sure.
associated with the department, and we're just an email away, um, or a text message. Of course, you know me now, and you can always text me directly, and many of my clients do that. But if you require any additional information, we're here to serve.
Mm-hmm.
You can say, Paul, I don't know how that looks like on a wrist. Can you put it on your wrist and take a picture? That's what we're
Yeah.
here to do. And we
Yeah.
do that with pleasure.
Yeah.
Tell me about this scratch there. What's the size of it? Can you take a deeper, a better picture so I get a sense of it? So
Yeah.
we're here to support. And if you wanted to submit an absentee bid, we can execute a bid on your behalf or tell you how to do it. With online auctions, you have to create an online account under Phillips and then you can submit your bids online. It's very similar to using eBay. You can put
Okay.
in your price and just walk away. And
Right.
with that price in mind, if you are the highest bidder, you win. If someone outbids you, you'll get alerted you've been outbid.
Right. Sure.
We have the sale open for a week. So you have 1 week to change your mind, to change your bid. Um,
Oh, interesting. Okay, so there's a week. All right. So no airplane flight is really going to get in the way. Got it.
yeah, for online. And also the same for live. Now, live is different because the actual watch is up for bidding for a very short window. It could be like 30 seconds where the auctioneer opens up the lot. There are advanced bids that come from people submitting their bids online or
Right.
submitting absentee bids, but there are people on the telephone and in the room actually bidding at the same time. So it happens faster.
Yeah.
You may want to be on the phone with someone on for a live auction versus online when it's entirely done online without a person in the loop.
Awesome. Paul, thank you for the time, man. It's always good to see you. It's always informative.
A pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah.
I'm very honored to be on this podcast.
Well, that it's all mine. Trust me. And I will be in New York in April. Would love to get together. I think I owe you a drink. And so
Great. For this, I owe you the drink. Come on.
No, let's make that happen. I really appreciate it, buddy. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
This wraps up this episode of the Standard H podcast. If you like what you heard, I'd love it if you'd share it with a friend or two. And if you have a moment, please rate and review the show, as it helps others discover these episodes. It absolutely helps far more than you realize. Shout out to Jensen Reed and Super Beautiful for the theme track. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.